What is happening, Magnus? So, the RFK Jr. video got cut off at a certain point. And a lot of you were all like, yeah, man, because you started speaking the truth. Well, I don't know if that's the case or not, but because the stream that I was watching was on Fox, and the link that was sent to me that has the rest of the speech was also on Fox, but a different Fox channel. So I don't know if it's what's the word? I don't know if that was the main Fox channel that people would normally watch. You know what I'm saying? And they cut it off, and this is just the internet channel. But I did take a screenshot. Of the time. I was told that the 53-minute and 1 second mark is where mine left off. So 53 seconds and 1. There we go. That's about it. 52, 56. That's about right. Let's get it.
Following my first discussion with President Trump, I tried unsuccessfully to open similar discussions with Vice President Harris. Vice President Harris declined to meet or even to speak with me. Suspending my candidacy is a heart-rending decision for me.
I feel like I heard
this part already. I'm convinced that it's the best hope for ending the Ukraine war and ending the chronic disease epidemic that is eroding our nation's vitality from the inside, and for finally protecting free speech. I feel a moral obligation to use this opportunity to save millions of American children, above all things. In case some of you don't realize how dire the condition is of our children's health and chronic disease in general, I would urge you to view Dr. Carlson's recent interview with Callie Means and his sister, Dr. Casey Means, who is the top graduate of her class at Stanford Medical School. This is an issue that affects all of us far more directly and urgently than any culture war issue and all the other issues that we obsess on and that are tearing apart our country. This is the most important issue. Therefore, it has the potential to bring us together.
Someone told me last night in the comments, they were like, yo, like, basically, they know how I am about natural health, you know what I mean? And they're kind of like, look, this dude is exposing all of it. And I know you're in the natural health, so if you're going to vote, please vote for Trump, because Trump's going to get him in. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm just like, but that sparked me, because they were like, yo, listen to the part of the speech that you missed, because that's what he's talking about. I was like, okay, so I definitely got to make sure I listen to it, because y'all know me. You know what I mean? It's, people still don't know I'm 47. Yes, I am. And, part of the reason why I look so young is natural health. And there's a lot involved in natural health, but yeah.
So let me share a little bit about why I believe it's so urgent. Today, 2/3, we spend more on healthcare than any country on earth, twice what they pay in Europe.
I've heard that.
Yet we have the worst health outcomes of any nation in the world. We're about 79th in health outcomes behind Costa Rica and Nicaragua and Mongolia and other countries. Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. And during the COVID epidemic, we had the highest body count of any country in the world. We had 16% of the COVID deaths, and we only have 4.2% of the world's population. And CDC says that's because we are the sickest people on earth. We have the highest chronic disease rate on earth. And the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So these were people who had immune system.
Hey, listen, I just want to tell y'all something. So I kind of look at myself as my own project. You know how some people, they'll buy an old Honda Civic and they'll build it into the best, one of the fastest street cars you could possibly ever see. and you see where they got it from and where they took it to. That's how I kind of am with myself. You know, I just want to take myself to the ultimate level. Ultimate. So, I know that it can be done through keeping yourself as healthy as possible. And that's one of the avenues, you know, just hard work, dedication, and all that type of stuff, depending on what your version of what ultimate is for yourself. But speaking at this point physically, there's a mental aspect, there's a spiritual aspect. I'm mainly speaking about physical, but what he's talking about here, like, I found out about some of this stuff a while ago about how we're like the most powerful nation in the world, but we're the sickest and all this other disease ridden stuff. And, you know, to hell with making all this extra money and doing this and that. My health is the most important thing to me, man. I got to be healthy. Like, you know, whenever I haven't been slipping, nothing but organic foods. You know, I'm juicing. I'm not juicing, juicing. Like with a juicer that juices fruits and vegetables. You know, I'm juicing. I'm fasting. I'm working out. I'm stretching. I'm deep breathing. I'm walking. I'm sitting in the sunlight. I'm grounding. Like just, I'm doing all these things to keep myself as healthy as possible. Because when something like this hits you, you know what I mean, and you're physically not ready for it, something like that could take you out. And I found out that I actually, when I did have 19, the first time I got it, I didn't know I had it. I only got a runny nose from it. And I had the runny nose persisted for like, I don't know, like maybe an hour or so. But that was it. You know why? At the time, I was juice fasting. It was that time I did that 50-day juice fast. I was like, what? I already got it? And that's the only symptom I got? After that, of course, I got it about 3 or 4 more times. And almost every time, the first or second time, I was like, yo, like, yo, I don't know if I'm going to make it. Like, I remember, but it was times when I wasn't totally zen and filling my body with nutrients and keeping it as strong as possible so that it could fight whatever, you know what I mean? So
to collapse, who had mitochondrial dysfunction, and no other country has anything like this. 2/3 of American adults and children suffer from chronic health issues.
With these issues he's speaking on, I'm starting to like this guy more and more and more.
50 years ago, that number was less than 1%.
Wow.
Now we've gone from 1% to 66%. In America, 74% of Americans are now overweight or obese, and 50% of our children. 120 years ago, when somebody was obese, they were sent to the circus. There were case reports done about them. Obesity was almost unknown.
Wow.
And the childhood obesity rate is 3% compared to 50% a year. Half of Americans have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. When my uncle was president, I was a boy. Juvenile diabetes was effectively non-existent. A typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes during his entire career, a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And
I was pre-diabetic at one time and I didn't even know it. And I started reading about diabetes at one time. And I started looking at the signs of it. And I was like, oh my God, I was right there at one point. Like one thing that I started to get, they tell you when you're pre-diabetic, you start to get darkness under your armpits, like right around in this area. See where I'm, both of them. And I can remember seeing that after, taking a shower, you're in the mirror drying off, you're looking at whatever. And I was like, just thinking, oh, it's just chafing. Maybe it's from running or walking a lot, working out. You know what I mean? You did think it might make, because sometimes people can get that on their thighs from chafing. Nope. And there were a few other things I was like, oh my God. Like when I finally figured it out a few years later, I was like, oh my God. That's since gone. But I'm glad I didn't go all the way. I got a buddy that went though. He's trying to get get himself together though. He listens and he don't listen all at the same time. You know what I mean? He eats bad food. I'm like, you're diabetic and you're eating that right now. You know what I'm saying? Like some people, but you might want to say they got it. Like I was about to say, some people act like they got a death wish, but at the same time, they're also addicted to these foods. They shouldn't be putting addictive substances in our food that addicts us to these highly palatable foods. You know what I mean? That are not good for us, because it only makes it worse, So you have you have some responsibility, but at the same time, if you don't know that you're being fed addictive substances, which kind of make you they do make you an addict to the food, which then you're basically a drug addict, and then you can't then you're fighting an addiction. You don't want to have to fight an addiction to lose weight. You got what I'm saying? I've been hooked on the food. That's why you guys have seen me go up and down in weight over the years because, well, first of all, I already know my weaknesses, okay? It's 2 weaknesses. Junk food, okay? Second, Scarlo, okay? When I am with Scarlo and we are super happy, all I do is we go out a lot. We go out to eat a lot. We, take her shopping and we have a lot of fun. We do a lot of things together, but that's a meme, there's the dog, there's the big old built, bull terrier, when he's single, but then he's sitting on the couch with his stomach out when he's with a woman. That's not just me. That's like a ton of men. We get relaxed after we're coupled up for a while. And it's a weakness that I recognize. And it's a weakness that I have been working on because I'm too relaxed and not on my full purpose when she's with me. You got what I'm saying? So there's rules. Like I had to set up a rule. Basically, when that door is closed, unless the house is burning down, do not, if it's an emergency, so you might really need help with something, then, like she messages me on, on my phone. I check it from time to time just to see if she needs me. Because I was spending so much time with her that I wasn't getting videos done. I wasn't getting other stuff done. I wasn't going to the gym the way I was supposed. I wasn't eating the way I was supposed to. I was just hanging with her. You know what I mean? And it can be like that. Love can be very euphoric, but love can make you drop your guard. And you still gotta stay savage, okay? You can be, but you gotta be, if you're in a relationship, be a loving savage. But you gotta stay on purpose. Yeah, you can take a break from here to there. This would be chest day today, but she want to go here. I'll take her here. Okay, well, you either, when you come back home, you get to the gym then, or you go tomorrow. And if tomorrow is supposed to be back day, you do back and chest day. You got what I'm saying? You can do that. You got it all in. You made it work. But just don't get soft, guys. I'm telling you, it is the hardest thing is getting back to my prime weight, my fighting weight. You know what I mean? Around that 200 pound. I'm still I used to be 255 and, I'm in the 220s right now. So I'm on my way down, but it is not easy, man. And when you got other people living in the house, you got them moving in with you, it's different. I was a hermit, a straight up hermit before you know what I mean? All I did was stay in the house, work out, do my cardio, stretch, deep breathe, juice. I'm just a hermit in the house on my purpose. She moved in is a whole different story. That's why so many guys get sidetracked when either they get married or they have children. You've got other responsibilities, other people you love that you want to take care of, that you want to make smile, that you want to make happy. You know what I mean? And I think some guys, they just lose themselves while being that provider as a man. So I've had to tell her, so I'm like, I'll, see her sometime, and she'd be like, baby, I'm like, nope, I got stuff to do. I will talk to you in a couple of hours, okay? Maybe you want to go to the gym or do some videos or call one of your friends or watch something on Netflix or something, because I can't hang. I'll tell her.
Mitochondrial disorder caused diabetes, also causing Alzheimer's, which is now classified as diabetes.
Diabetes type 3.
And it's costing this country more than our military budget every year. There's been an explosion of neurological illnesses that I never saw as a kid. ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, Tourette's syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, Asperger's, autism. In the year 2000, the autism rate was 1 in 1,500. Now autism rates in kids are 1 in 36, according to CDC nationally. Nobody's talking about this. 1 in every 22 kids in California has autism. And this is a crisis that 77% of our kids are too disabled to serve in the United States military. What is happening to our country? And
you ever see that old video of all the kids working out? Was it like in the 50s or something? But they were all in gym class in high school. Woo! Yeah. I was like, they look like they training soldiers here almost. Like, what is going on here? This is a boot camp. Watch it. See if you can find it.
Why isn't this in the headlines every single day? There's nobody else in the world that is experiencing this. This is only happening in America.
I could answer that question for you, but people would call me a conspiracy theorist for it.
About 18%, and by the way, there has been no change in diagnosis, which the industry sometimes like to say. There has been no change in screening. This is a change in incidence. In my generation, 70-year-old men, the autism rates are about 1 in 10,000. In my kids' generation, 1 in 34. I'll repeat, in California, 1 in 22. Why are we letting this happen? Why in 1,000? In my kids' the autism rates are about 1 in 10,000. In my kids' generation, 1 in 34. I'll repeat, in California, 1 in 22. Why are we letting this happen? Why are we allowing this to happen to our children?
Man, look.
These are the most precious assets that we have in this country. How can we let this happen to them? About 18% of American teens now have fatty liver disease. That's like 1 out of every 5. That disease, when I was a kid, only affected late-stage alcoholics who were elderly.
Wow.
Cancer rates are skyrocketing in the young and the old. Young adult cancers are up 79%. 1 in 4 American women is on antidepressant medication. 40% of teens have a mental health diagnosis. And 15% of high schoolers are on Adderall, and 500,000 children on SSRIs. So what's causing this suffering?
The food.
I'll name 2 culprits. The first and the worst.
Probably, I'm assuming he's going to say the food and pharmaceuticals, or he's going to say the ingredients in food or pharmaceuticals. That's what I think he's going to say.
First is ultra-processed food. About 70% of American children's diet is ultra-processed. That means industrial manufactured in a factory. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra-processed grains, and seed oils. Laboratory scientists many of whom formerly worked for the cigarette industry, which purchased all the big food companies in the 1970s and 80s.
I know that.
Deployed thousands of scientists to figure out new chemicals to make the food more addictive. And these ingredients didn't exist 100 years ago. Humans aren't biologically adapted to eat them. Hundreds of these chemicals are now banned in Europe but ubiquitous in American processed foods. The second culprit is toxic chemicals in our food, in our medicine, in our environment. Pesticides, food additives are banned in Europe, but ubiquitous in American processed foods. The second culprit is toxic chemicals in our food, in our medicine, in our environment.
See?
Pesticides, food additives, pharmaceutical drugs, and toxic waste permeate every cell of our bodies. The assault on our children's cells and hormones is unrelenting. To name just one problem, many of these chemicals increase estrogen. Because young children are ingesting so many of these hormone disruptors, America's puberty rate is now occurring at age 10 to 13, which is 6 years earlier than girls were reaching puberty in 1900. Our country has the earliest puberty rates of any continent on the earth. And no, this isn't because of better nutrition. This is not normal. Breast cancer is also estrogen driven and now strikes 1 in 8 women. We are mass poisoning all of our children and our adults. Considering the grievous human costs of this tragic epidemic of chronic disease, it seems almost crass to mention the damage it does to our economy. But I'll say it is crippling the nation's finances. When my uncle was president, our country spent $0 on chronic disease. Today, government healthcare spending is almost all for chronic disease. And it's double the military budget. And it is the fastest growing budget item in the federal budget. And chronic disease costs more to the economy as a whole, costs at least $4 trillion, 5 times our military budget. And that's a 20% drag on everything we do and everything.
Like, I know he's got an issue. I've read about it before, but I kind of glazed over it. I was like, okay, that's what makes him sound like that. All right, he's got some issue. I wonder if he's working. I would assume with all his knowledge on this that he's working on whatever it is that can fix his voice. You know what I mean?
Anything we aspire to. Poor and minority communities suffer disproportionately. People who worry about DEI or about bigotry of any kind, this dwarfs anything. We are poisoning the poor. We are systematically poisoning minorities across this country. Industry lobbyists have made sure that most of the food stamp lunch program, about 70% of food stamps and about 70 or 77% of school lunches are processed foods.
You remember seeing that meme that was going around? There was just a post that was going around where it was showing the different lunches from around the world and it showed the U.S. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, if this is real and they're all eating that good around the world, no wonder.
There's no vegetables. There's nothing that you would want to eat. We are just poisoning the poor citizens, and that's why they have the highest chronic disease burden of anybody, any demographic in our country, and the highest in the world. The same food industry lobbied to make sure that nearly all agricultural subsidies go to commodity crops that are the feedstock of processed food industry. These policies are destroying small farms and they're destroying our soils. We give about, I think, 8 times as much in subsidies to tobacco than we do to fruits and vegetables. It makes no sense. If we want a healthy country, the good news is that we can change all this. We can change it very, very quickly. America can get healthy again. To do that, we need to do 3 things. First, we need to root out the corruption in our health agencies. Second, we need to change incentives in our...
Let me tell you something. Him talking like this, I now fear for him. And this is not a joke.
Our healthcare system. And third, we need to inspire Americans to get healthy again. 80% of NIH grants go to people with conflicts of interest.
Well, so what are we going to call that? Maha, make America healthy again. Maha. Maha. Oh, you Maha Republicans out there getting all healthy and stuff. Maha. Republicans.
These are the people, virtually everybody who says, Joe Biden just appointed a new panel to NIH to decide the food recommendations. And they're all people who are from the industry. They're all people who are from the processed food companies. They're deciding what Americans, here is healthy.
I think was it Coach Greg I was listening to? I can't remember. It was someone though, and it was yesterday. And they were talking about how there's this whole sham of how, they'll come out and say, oh no, well, a calorie is just a calorie. When it's really not. It's more like, I guess you could say it's a rule of thumb. But a calorie is not a calorie. They were specifically talking about sugar, how, these companies will come out and tell you that, like a calorie from high fructose corn syrup is the same as a calorie from, say, organic sugarcane, granulated sugarcane. It's not the same. And, I can remember hearing guys, old school guys like Greg Valentino talking about that. He was like, your body does not process a 300 calorie cupcake the way it would process 300 calories from a, steak. It's not the same. You know what I mean? And I noticed that, when I was younger and I would be, I was just getting into bodybuilding. Oh, this many calories. This, okay, and I noticed I would feel like garbage. I remember the first time I ate fast food before working out, and I was weaker. I was weaker when I went to the gym after eating fast food. And I was like, okay, something's not right here. You know what I mean? If I had eaten dinner at home, which my mom didn't make the healthiest food, but the food from home was healthier than McDonald's, I would be fine. Body wasn't processing things right. You know what I mean?
And the recommendations on the food pyramid, and what goes to our school lunch programs, what go to the program, the Swiss program, the food stamp programs. They are all corrupted and conflicted individuals. These agencies, the FDA, USDA, and CDC, all of them are controlled by giant for-profit corporations. 75% of the FDA's funding doesn't come from taxpayer, it comes from pharma. And pharma executives and consultants and lobbyists cycle in and out of these agencies with President Trump's backing. I'm going to change that. We're going to staff these agencies with honest scientists and doctors who are free from industry funding. We're going to make sure the decisions of consumers, doctors, and patients are informed by unbiased science. A sick child is the best thing for the pharmaceutical industry. When American children or adults get sick with a chronic condition, they're put on medication for their entire life. Imagine what will happen when Medicare starts paying for Ozempic, which costs $1,500 a month, and it's being recommended for children as young as 6. All for a condition, obesity, that is completely preventable and barely even existed 100 years ago. And 74% of Americans are obese. The cost, if all of them took their Ozempic prescription, is $3 trillion a year. This is a drug that is made by Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe. It's a Danish company, and the Danish government does not recommend it. It recommends change in diet to treat obesity and exercise. And in our country, the recommendation now is for Ozempic to children at age 6. Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe, and virtually its entire value is based upon its projections of what it's going to sell, of the Ozempic it's going to sell to America. And we have the food lobbyists have a bill in front of Congress today that is backed by the White House, backed by Vice President Harris and President Biden to allow this to happen. This $3 trillion cost that is going to bankrupt our country. For a fraction of that amount, we could buy organic food for every American family, 3 meals a day, and eliminate diabetes altogether.
You know, I was watching a guy yesterday, and he was talking about organic versus fast food, and how fast food's cheaper. But here's the whole thing: with the way food prices have skyrocketed, he basically gave an example of you can go and buy like a value meal for $15. You know what I mean? Where you get your soda, your sandwich, and your fries, right? Which is horrible because this stuff is not what it used to be. It's like when I was coming up, a value meal was $5. Okay. So, I noticed, you go to, these fast food places, I can, as I'm trying to think of the last time I went to one, but I remember, getting a meal for maybe $13, $12, $14, something like that in that range, But it's like, okay, so look, it's really not a big difference because fast food it's so it's easy. It used to be cheap, and that was your reason for buying it because it's cheap. That's why so many. I can't afford to eat organic. You either pay now or you pay later. Okay, you want to pay for the hospital bills later, or you want to pay now for good food. But anyway, the guy's point was, well, you could also spend $15 on a few organic ingredients and make yourself a meal. You know what I mean? And maybe a few meals that could last you, a couple of days, depending on what you go and get. I forgot how much a pound of beef is, but of organic grass-fed beef, you know what I mean? I don't know, really $5-6. You'll get that, and maybe, I don't know, maybe make your own hamburgers. You get some organic buns. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? It's not worth it to get the fast food. That's the point.
We're going to bring healthy food back to school lunches. We're going to stop subsidizing the worst foods with our agricultural subsidies. We're going to get toxic chemicals out of our food. We're going to reform the entire food system.
Should have gave y'all a few more ingredients, but yeah, I'm simple. I'm very simple. The girlfriend that lives here, she's way more elaborate. She could take the $15 and buy a bunch of organic stuff and make a great healthy meal for us all. Were you like, hey, Tyrone, you only gave us 2 ingredients. You just said make hamburger. I know what I said, but I'm easy. You want something that mom can make? You talk to her. She get the beef, the rice, and a couple of adobo. Or they have organic versions of adobo. I mean, she could make up something. A can of beans. Whatever. You get my point. Damn it.
And for that, we need new leadership in Washington. Because unfortunately, both the Democrats and the Republican parties are in cahoots with the big food producers. Big Democrats and the Republican parties are in cahoots with the big food producers. Both. Big Pharma and Big Ag, which are...
See, and that's why I say I don't trust either side. And I know at this point it's a lesser of two evils type of thing, and who's going to take care of the country better. From everything that I'm seeing on both sides, for me, if I was voting, I'd be voting for Trump because I'm just like, I was doing better when he was in office. Things aren't as good now. And I find it interesting that Kamala is saying stuff like, oh, well, on day one, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's like, well, you're in office now. Why isn't it being done now? Which I find very interesting. Her and Joe are so cool and close. Why can't you get it done now,
Among the DNC's major donors, Vice President Harris has expressed no interest in addressing this issue. 4 more years of Democratic rule will complete the consolidation of corporate and neocon power, and our children will be the ones who suffer most.
And Scarlo, see, we've discussed having children and stuff like that. And one of the reasons why I have flip-flopped on having children is because I don't know if I want to bring any children into a world like this right now. And the stuff that they are feeding the children physically and mentally is highly detrimental to them. So I don't know what I want to do.
I got involved with chronic disease 20 years ago, not because I chose to or wanted to. It was
like, I feel like I would have to move out of the country to have them somewhere where I could get the cleanest food and the best education, something that wasn't warping their minds and, stuff like that. I would really have to figure things out once I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I think I want to have kids. I would have to figure that all out.
It was essentially thrust upon me. It was an issue that should have been central to the environmental movement. I was a central leader at that time, but it was widely ignored by all the institutions, including the NGOs, who should have been protecting our kids against toxins. It was an orphan issue, and I had a weakness for orphans. I watched generations of children get sicker and sicker. I had 11 siblings, and I had 7 kids myself. I was conscious of what was happening in their classrooms and to their friends, and I watched these sick kids, these damaged kids. In that generation, almost all of them are damaged. And nobody in power seemed to care or to even notice. For 19 years, I prayed every morning that God would put me in a position to end this calamity. The chronic disease crisis was one of the primary reasons for my running for president, along with ending censorship in the Ukraine war. It's the reason I've made the heart-wrenching decision to suspend my campaign and to support President Trump. This decision is agonizing for me because of the difficulty.
It's funny. He's got some damn good like a damn good head on his shoulders, from what I'm seeing here. So, is he for or against abortion? I'd like to know his stance on that.
Difficulties it causes.
Considering he wants to protect children and us and all of our lives, but he's Democrat, correct? Or was, or what?
My wife and my children and my friends. But I have the certainty that this is what I've meant to do. And that certainty gives me internal peace, even in storms. If I'm given the chance to fix the chronic disease crisis and reform our food production, I promise that within 2 years, we will watch chronic disease burden lift dramatically. We will make Americans healthy again. Within 4 years, America will be a healthy country. We will be stronger, more resilient, more optimistic, and happier. I won't fail in doing this. Ultimately, the future, however it happens, is in God's hands and in the hands of the American voters and those of President Trump. If President Trump is elected and honors his word, the vast burden of chronic disease that now demoralizes and bankrupts the country will disappear.
I like that he threw that in there. If he's elected and he honors his word. I like that.
This is a spiritual journey for me. I reached my decision through deep prayer, through hard-nosed logic, and I asked myself, what choices must I make to maximize my chances to save America's children and restore national health?
You got that spit line flapping. Lick your lips, man.
I was able to look myself in the mirror, knowing that I could have saved lives of countless children and reversed this country's chronic disease epidemic. I'm 70 years old and may have a decade to be effective. I can't imagine that President Harris would allow me or anyone to solve these dire problems. After 8 years of President Harris, any opportunity for me to fix the problem will be out of my reach forever. President Trump has told me that he wants this to be his legacy. I'm choosing to believe that this time he will follow through.
Well, to make America great again, he would have to handle a lot of things, including our health. So,
his son, his biggest donors, his closest friends, and all support this objective. my joining the Trump campaign will be a difficult sacrifice for my wife and children, but worthwhile if there's even a small chance of saving these kids. Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country and our children is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other. That's why I launched my campaign to unify America. My dad and uncle made such an enduring mark on the character of our nation, not so much because of any particular policies that they promoted, but because they were able to inspire profound love for our country and to fortify our sense of ourselves as a national community held together by ideals. They were able to put their love into the intentions and hearts of ordinary Americans and to unify a national populist movement of Americans, blacks and whites, Hispanics, urban and rural Americans. They inspired affection and love and high hopes and a culture of kindness that continue to radiate among Americans from their memory. That's the spirit on which...
Is he crying or is he sweating?
I ran my campaign and that I intend to bring into the campaign of President Trump. Instead of
But the way he talks, you can't tell if he's crying, about to cry about something sometimes or not.
Polarization, I will appeal to the values that unite us.
Looks like he might
that
be
we could
sweating.
achieve if only we weren't at each other's throats. The most unifying theme for all Americans is that we all love our children. If we all unite around that issue now, we can finally give them the protection, the health, and the future that they deserve. Thank you all very much.
Wow. Very good. Very good. Well, I'm definitely behind this guy so far. Let's see what else he has to offer. I'll try to look up more speeches from him. Very, very interesting. See you in the next video. Woo.